Hello, everyone. We're back. I'll give you a minute to get back in your seat, and then we're going to get started with our fourth mentor of the morning. So I'd like to introduce Steph Beaton. Steph, you are on mute, so you will have to take yourself off mute before we get started. Stephanie Beaton is a supply chain manager with MOOG Focal Technologies Corporation. So she's going to tell you all about it, but it is a STEM career path, which I don't know a lot about. So this will be new information for me as well. But Steph, whenever you're ready, thank you so much for joining us today. I'm super excited to hear from you because I don't know a lot about this particular career path. So,
excellent. Well, welcome, or thank you for having me, and looking forward to giving some insight on what it is I do as my job. And so I just wanted to give folks a little bit of background as to how I got there. So I'm actually a mechanical engineer, and I went to high school in Nova Scotia, so I'm from Nova Scotia. And so in Nova Scotia, to do engineering, if you want to stay in the province, you have the option to select from a few feeder schools, and I selected St. Mary's University. So for the engineering program, you do 2 years at your associate or affiliate university, and then everyone feeds into Dalhousie to complete their program. And so I chose St. Mary's for a couple of reasons. The class sizes there were smaller, and also in terms of schedule, it met my needs, and I got a pretty good scholarship there. So those were some of the factors in why I went to St. Mary's as opposed to going right to Dalhousie. I really enjoyed my time there. We had a great faculty, and I felt really, really prepared for the road ahead when I transferred over to Dalhousie. So when you transfer over to Dalhousie, majority of our classes will be at the engineering campus, which is the Sexton campus down on Spring Garden. Now, I know that, depending on that class size and those sorts of things, they might have to use larger areas for classes. So that may have changed a little bit. But I did a 5-year total program, so 2 years at St. Mary's and then the remaining 3 years at Dal. The reason that my degree took an additional 3 years is because I opted to do cooperative education, so gaining some work experience through that platform. So you're sitting there and you're thinking, well, what's in it for me, or why might I choose engineering? So I just wanted to kind of outline what my decisions were at the time. So I really enjoyed math and science in high school, and certainly had strong affiliation with those types of courses, and at the time, I didn't know anything about engineering as a profession. I didn't know anyone who was an engineer, but one of my grade 11 teachers inspired me to look into the career because he said, if you're good at math and science and you really like it, engineering is a great career to get in because of the job opportunities, the pay scale, and also, and I have noted here, scholarship opportunities. So that was a really important thing for me as a student, and as a female, I was able to access different types of grants and scholarships because engineering is a field where, at point in time, it was a very male-dominated field. So those were kind of some of my points, and then just kind of reflecting back on, why it might be a good choice. So if you're someone who really enjoys problem solving, if you're someone who really enjoys working with teams, and if you're someone who really enjoys continuous learning, then, maybe it's not just math and science, because what I've learned is, there's affiliations there and there's certain requirements to get into the degree program, but it's really diverse when you look at engineering as a field. So engineering, you don't need to necessarily focus on technical requirements. There are industrial engineers that look at problems and look to streamline processes and organize processes and work with experts, the expertise or the technical experts, to make a process work in an environment. So certainly those are things that I wish I had known in going into university, because I really focused on mechanical engineering, but what I've learned about myself is I really probably would have enjoyed industrial engineering if I had done a little bit more research. The other thing that I really liked about engineering when I looked into it is the cooperative education program. So you get a chance to learn and do work experience with companies, and there are paid work terms. So it also helps offset some of the costs of going to school. So for all those reasons, that is why I chose engineering. So for me, my career progression is kind of interesting because since graduation, I've only worked for one company. So MOOG Focal Technologies is where I've worked for about the last 13 years. And I actually started off in the mechanical engineering group as a mechanical designer. And then I held a couple of different roles in the mechanical engineering group. So the first three that you see there are related to that team. And so as a mechanical engineer working at MOOG Focal, what I was involved in was product development, production support, as well as specializing in some of the design requirements for our products. So very, very technical. And I did things like created bills of materials so that someone could build a product that I've designed. I also did drafting, so creating 3D CAD models and then creating drawings so that vendors could produce the part that needs to be built into a unit. I also was responsible for supporting our production team, so if there was an issue, working with them to resolve it, whether it was the performance or how the parts fit together. I was also responsible for engaging a little bit with our suppliers so that they would understand the requirements. And so all of that really translated into a portion of the mechanical engineering degree that I took at SMU Dal. Again, what I learned along the way is that I really still liked working with teams. I liked problem solving, but I really wanted an opportunity to manage people because that was something I was very interested in as an individual. And something that kind of inspired that is I work with the Air Cadet program. So I've had lots of leadership roles and opportunities through that. And so I know it's something that I was interested in terms of managing people. I also knew that I really liked processes more than sitting and drafting drawings and getting effectively more specialized. I wanted to generalize in the company. I wanted to understand how we sell things to customers, how we go about, deciding whether or not we're going to do a part of a business, and how do we make that from an idea all the way to implementation and producing those products from start to finish. And so what I had the opportunity to do was move into our operations team. So that's the last two items on the list. So I started off moving into our operations team as the quality and purchasing manager. And then my current role is the supply chain manager. So what that entails at this facility is I'm responsible for purchasing, quality, but then I'm also responsible for the materials and logistics, or shipping side of things. So a bigger section or a bigger portion of the system as a whole. And so what I wanted to do was to share with you, give you a little bit of concept of what we produce here at MOOG Focal, because I thought it might help. And so I've got a link there to a YouTube video that I'm just going to put in the chat. It's about a 3-minute video that just kind of talks about the types of products we make. And so I'm hoping that you guys can play that on your end, and then we'll talk a little bit more about what I do in my role.
hopefully everybody's had time to watch the video now. We only have about 3 minutes left, so before questions, Stephanie. So if you want to continue, that would be great.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, and if you didn't have time to watch the entirety, at least it gave you some ideas of the products that we're building here. So at MOOG Focal, we actually design and build everything on site. And what we outsource is all of the components that are used to build. So we work with local partners, machine shops, and vendors in Ontario and Quebec. That produce some of the electronics that we incorporate into our designs, and then everything is built and tested on site and then shipped off to the customer. So really exciting kind of opportunity because you get to see how everything is done, and you get to be hands-on and engaged and see the product in real time. And we build products that allow you to transfer electricity, fiber optic signals, or fluid through a rotating interface. So you think about if something's rotating and you've got a whole bunch of cables and cords running through it, they would all get bound up and rip and those sorts of things. So the slip ring allows us to transfer electricity through a rotating interface through the design that we have. And so some of you may not even know this, but you may have seen a slip ring in an everyday product that you have at home. If you have a hair straightener at home and you have your cord, and the back of your cord that attaches into your hair straightener might have a little cylinder, and then the cord comes out, and that way the cord can rotate. That's a very small handheld slip ring. And the applications that we use these in vary. So in the video, they show the wind turbines, they show ROVs, so remotely operated vehicles. We also have defense applications, and we do a lot in the ocean tech sector as well, which is very, very prevalent here in Nova Scotia in the last few years. So lots of opportunities. And so what my job is working with teams that procure the parts, that work with our vendors outside the facility to make sure that things come in that are quality products and that they're delivered on time so that production can build what we need to build. I'm working with our quality department to make sure that we have quality processes in place to vet the products coming in from our vendors, as well as that we have good quality from start to finish in our processes. And then I'm working with teams that make sure that everything is kitted up for production and everything is available for them to start their work. And I'm on the end of it with a team that ships everything out and works with the customers. So very, very diverse work day. And most of my day is engaging with my teams, helping them solve problems, understanding what is a priority and working through our day-to-day tasks. And then I also liaise with a lot of partners across the business. So our sales team, our production teams, our engineering teams on new projects, on current orders, as well as challenges that come up, because certainly we have a lot of technical products, and so we have a lot of challenges that come up that need a team put together to resolve any issues. And then, you know, I'm working with outside parties, so I'm engaging with our different vendors to make sure that our teamwork with them is up to speed, and making sure that we have good engagement, because they are an extension of our business. They're equally as important as somebody that's working and sitting in the office with me. So lots of teamwork, lots of engagement, and that's something that I'm really passionate about and really enjoying my day-to-day work. So I think we're just 1 minute over, and we'll open it up to questions, Brenda.
Sounds great. We actually have a few questions already in the chat. So the first question, they're wondering about the typical pay scale, and maybe if you want to take your presentation down, then we can see everybody's or your face a little bit bigger, at least for the videos.
There we go.
Wonderful.
All
So
right.
Typical pay scale is the first question.
Yeah, so typical pay scale for this type of work, depending on how many departments you might have, is somebody in a supply chain position you know, they might have a starting salary in around $60,000 a year, but as you expand and get experience, and maybe you also have education surrounding that, there's lots of different courses and certifications you can get around official supply chain titles, and so that can branch into anywhere, you know, in a six-figure range for certain companies. So it really does depend on the responsibility that you have.
Okay, excellent. So starting at 60K and going to over 100K, you know, with experience and more education. That's really cool. We have another question here. They saying that they recently had a presentation in their classroom, specifically from marine engineering. Do those marine engineers, as compared to other engineering positions, need high levels of math, or will grade 12 academic math be sufficient?
I'm not sure about that program because I didn't look into it. I know for a lot of engineering requirements, it's typically you need the advanced math, and sometimes you might even have a prerequisite for calculus, although I think there are opportunities at the university to take that pre-calculus if you don't have the prerequisite credit. But that would be a great exam or great question or research to do on what's required to go into that program by contacting the school directly or talking to your guidance counselor.
Excellent. And just as another teacher, and I do see Mr. Buren has another question about females, but I want to go on to this question because they're related. Which courses did you take for mechanical engineering, and what was your major? So what types of courses did you have to take as mechanical engineering?
Yeah, so a very broad category, but we had to take we had to take a lot of things about strengths of materials and structures. So understanding a lot of the mechanics and dynamics are specific courses that you would have to take. And in the latter years of engineering, you also have to take what's called systems. So that's, you know, how does everything fit together? It has a lot of background with calculus related to it. And what's nice is as you get into your fourth and potentially fifth year, if you do co-op, is you get the option to take courses that you might be interested in. So I took finite element analysis as one of my technical electives. So there are lots of technical electives that you can choose from, and it does vary from year to year what they offer based upon the faculty, but there's probably about 10 different technical electives that you can take and customize based upon your own interests.
Excellent. So then we'll go back up to the other one. Are more female students entering into engineering in recent years?
I believe so. I think with a lot of awareness and work that's being done to stimulate an interest in females entering into STEM categories of education, we're certainly seeing an uptick in terms of number of female engineering students. I've worked with Dalhousie a little bit from time to time with volunteer opportunities, and I know my year of mechanical engineering, we only had 7 out of 60 of us, and certainly those numbers are shifting and changing. But I think just in general, awareness of what the programs and offerings are is significant regardless of gender, because a lot of students may not have heard of what engineering is, or to have a great understanding that there's lots of different categories in which they could apply to an engineering program. And so they know about the standard, they know about civil engineering, and they might know about mechanical engineering, but that, they don't know about industrial engineering, as the example I gave in my presentation.
Excellent. And our final question, because we are at 11:01, is your company connected to offshore drilling rigs?
We are, in terms of products that we make. So some of the larger programs that we work on, offshore oil and gas, when a vessel, so a floating production and storage vessel, docks in order to offload and take oil off the rig. In order for them to do that, the vehicle needs to, or the vessel needs to be able to weather vane in the wind. And so some of our large products allow them to do that, allow them to monitor aspects of the system all through a very large slip ring assembly. And then we're also engaged in subsea oil field communications. So monitoring systems, making sure that safety systems are in place, and being able to communicate back to the vessel and back to the shore.
Excellent. That's awesome. I mean, so many different things in engineering. We could do a whole world of choices just on engineering, to hear from so many different ones. And there's so many different careers that are based in an engineering degree to start with. It's absolutely, I can't even count how many careers. And I never really thought about supply chain as being related to engineering, but you need to know what it is they're doing in order to understand what it is they need. So it makes a lot of sense to me now.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us today, Stephanie. Super excited that you were able to join us. It looks like you're working from home as well.
No, I'm in the office.
You're in the office? Okay, perfect. I'm still at home. But thank you so much for joining us today. We're going to talk to the kids for another minute or two about their next step, which is we're going to have an expo, and they get to go visit some more booths. So lots of stuff happening today. But thank you, Stephanie. You're free to go. Thank you so much.